Hi, boys and girls. Welcome back to Writer's Workshop. My name is Mrs. Lanning. So, writers, you've been working hard as fiction writers for a while now, and you have had to make important decisions every single day about what you're going to work on in your writing. And it's sort of a big deal for writers to decide what they're going to work on each day. You might decide to do things in your book that you saw a partner do, or a classmate, or maybe another mentor author did. Or you might decide that you want to add important details to your story. Or maybe you want to work hard on the endings of your story like we did last time. Those are just some of the new things that you've been working on. You already knew about writing small moments, about making characters move and talk, bringing out the inside, talking about what they're feeling in their heart, what they're thinking in their mind. You know about using capitals and using punctuation to help your reader, and so much more. So today, instead of a regular mini lesson, I was thinking I could help you to become an expert at making decisions about your big personal goals as a writer. Because, like I said, every day as an author, you are making decisions about what you need to focus and work on. We want to use our time wisely, right? So, one way to do this is to evaluate the fiction book that you think is your best so far. So you are going to look at your fiction writing, and I want you to pull out the story that you've been working on that you think is the best. Even if it's one that you worked on from last week or the week before, I want you to pull out the fiction writing that you think is the best. That way, you can figure out the things that you do well and compliment yourself on those things. Give yourself a pat on the back, and then you can also figure out the things that you want to get better at, and you want to work on so you can set those expert goals. Because no one's perfect. No one. No adult, not anyone. No one's perfect. Even adult authors, they're always going back through their work, looking at checklists and making note of what they did great and what they need to continue to grow and work on. All of us are that way. Even in sports, they do it, right? In football, they might see how fast they're running, how well they're passing the ball, how well they're catching, and see what are they doing well, what do they need to work on. They're constantly doing that, even when you're at the expert level. So today, each of you are going to investigate these questions. What am I doing well as a narrative writer, and what do I want to work on next and get better at? Writers, you might remember how to do this. First, you put your best fiction book in front of you. Like I said, I want you to pull out what you think is your best work. And then I want you to compare your writing to the narrative writing checklist. Checklists help us stay on track to see what we're doing well and what we can grow and work on. And you'll remember this particular checklist from our Small Moments unit at the beginning of the year. It's a list of all the things that writing teachers decided that first grade students should be able to do by the very end of first grade. It's getting close to the end of first grade. Crazy, right? So when you decide what your next steps are as a writer, it's really important to make sure that you have accomplished all of these goals. Today, we will begin by checking these and making plans to meet these goals right away. I know that as I read this list, you are going to say, "Ooh, hey, I'm doing that right here in my story." When you were writing small moment stories, you were writing about yourself. But now that you're writing fiction books, you are writing about something that your character did. And the trick is to write one small moment about just one thing that happened to that character. Not everything in that character's whole life, but to zoom in on just one moment. And that really is a second grade goal that I think all of you are ready to do. So let's look at our writing. I want you to look at that book that you've been working on that you pulled out in front of you. And if you need to pause while you pull out that and come back, you can do that. So first, we want to see, did you write about one thing? And if you did that, you might give yourself a check mark. You might even go ahead and use a sticky note to prove it in your writing. And maybe on your sticky note, you put on your paper one thing. Or you put a check that you wrote about one thing and you put it on your paper to prove it. Or maybe you underline it with a colored pencil or a crayon or something, or you just make a check in the air. Whatever you're doing, you're finding a way to check it. The next thing I want you to check on our checklist is, did you try to make a beginning of your story? Did you work on a beginning? If you wrote a beginning that introduces the trouble in our story, put a sticky note on that page or mark it or do the check mark and write beginning on it. I'm not sure I introduced the trouble in my story in the beginning, so instead of putting a green dot on my Post-it note, I'm actually going to put a red dot to make sure that I remember this is something I actually need to work on. And that's okay. I'm going to find things that I need to work on, but I'm going to make a mark of that on my Post-it note or with my colored pencil to make sure that I go back and I check this item, that I'm going to go back and make sure I write a clear beginning for my story. But maybe you already have that, so you put a green check or a green dot. Next, did you put your pages in order? And did you use words such as and, then, so? If you put those pages in order and use those connecting words, you can go ahead and give yourself a green check mark or a green dot, or maybe you're going to give yourself a red mark or just put a note that you need to work on it. Remember how you told your story across your fingers? You want to make sure that you connected those parts by using phrases like first, then, next, and last to tell your reader how the story is moving along. And like I said, if you did that, you can put a check. And if not, maybe you put a note, work on uh, pages in order. Maybe you put that down in your notes because that's something you're going to work on, or using those connecting words. Next, I found a way to end my story. Did you find a way to end your story? And is your ending satisfying? Remember, we talked about that last time. We don't want to leave our readers unsatisfied with the ending. Something happens and I got the character out of trouble. If you think your ending is your best writing, put a sticky note on it or with your colored pencil or crayon and just write end. Check. If you think you could do better, put a sticky note with a red dot, or maybe just draw yourself a note saying that you are going to work on the end. And next, did you write your story across 3 or more pages? Remember, writers, you have so much to tell and talk about. So we want to see that story stretched across the pages because we know that you can fill those up. In fact, I get so proud when I see friends write way more than 3 pages. Oh my gosh, it's the best feeling ever because I know their stories are going to be filled with so much detail. So, did you write your story across 3 or more pages? Yes? Awesome! Put a sticky note and write across pages. Or if you need to work on it, make a note for yourself with that too. Maybe you put a red dot. Okay, writers. Now you are going to tell each other what you did well and prove it. Show your partner what you did well and prove where you have it in your story. You got to show your proof, and that's where those sticky notes or using your pencil or colored crayon to make note comes in handy. And maybe if you're at home, you can show someone in your family a stuffed animal or a pet. What matters is not that you can do one of these things in one book. What's important is that you do this all the time as a writer. And so that's why these checklists are helpful no matter what story we're writing. We want to use that checklist to check our work amongst all the stories that we do so we can continue using our strategies and make sure it's our best fiction writing that we've done so far. And many of you are finding out that you did lots of things already in your writing that is great. And remember, to become an even better writer, we also need to make sure that we check on things that we say, I think I could get better at this, or I could work on this. This could improve. I don't feel so great about writing endings. I feel like they're not what I'm best at. So you know what? I'm going to continue working on that. And that's something I want to grow and become better at. So I want you to think of what are things you did great and what are things that you can get better at. And I admire that some of you decided that if you only did something once in your writing, that you could be even better at it. That's being brave, friends. Maybe you do have an ending, and it's okay, but you see that it could become even better. And so you're making note of that. That is great. I want you to listen to these next parts and check your writing. You can take notes on the checklist or on your sticky notes, or like I said, maybe you've got a crayon or a pencil to go ahead and make tiny notes in the margin. So here are the other items. Remember, you can always pause if I'm reading too quickly. You can pause and make your notes. I put the picture from my mind onto the page. I had details in pictures and words. Did you have those details? Make notes if you did or didn't. I used labels and words to give details. And remember to check across all your pages, not just one page. So you do want to pause as I'm reading this and go through all your pages. I used all I knew about words and chunks of words to help me spell. I spelled all of the word wall words correct and used the word wall to help me spell other words, all those words we know in a snap. I ended my sentences with punctuation. I used a capital letter for names. I used commas in dates or lists. All right, friends. I am so proud of you for setting such brave and daring goals. I want you to give yourself a pat on the back for what you decided you did well, but even more so, I want you to pat yourself on the back if you saw something that you want to get even better at. That's what makes us so proud as teachers is when you set goals for yourself and you see, "Ooh, I need to work on this," and you are committed to working on it and growing. That's what we love to see is your growth. So, writers, now you are going to work independently. You're going to share your goals and show off your work how your teacher shares. I want you to decide right now what you will be working on today. Using that checklist, what were the areas that you wanted to grow and improve and get better at? Was it beginnings? Endings? Was it zooming in on just one moment? Is it connecting and telling the story in order? You decide, friends, using that checklist on what you want to grow on. All right, friends, it's your turn. Writers, go write.